Will essentially be the general manager of the Department of Justice.
Watching the rule of law on a day-to-day basis.
Senators Cardin and Van Hollen among the 94 to confirm Rod Rosenstein today as Deputy Attorney General.
The 52-year-old is now the second in command behind Attorney General Jeff Sessions and will leave Baltimore after 12 years.
But before bolting, he sat down with ABC 2 News investigative reporter Brian Kuebler.
So I'd like to ask you, Mr. Rosenstein.
Do you support the appointment of an independent special counsel?
Have you ever met with representatives of the Russian government?
The Deputy Attorney General position is usually not met with the kind of fanfare and high-profile hearings that Rod Rosenstein endured last month.
Therefore, I have recused myself.
But with his new boss recusing himself from investigating any sort of Russian connection to the Trump campaign, now appointed, he'll be the lead of the contentious case. Rosenstein's apolitical style will be immediately tested by this hyper-political investigation.
I am very cognizant of the fact that when I get in that job, I have national responsibilities.
It's a big promotion, but one Rosenstein says will not sway the way he conducts and has conducted his brand of crime fighting.
It's not difficult for me. I understand there are priorities that are set based on political considerations. That's appropriate. A new president, a new attorney general, they have the right to determine where they want to focus their resources. But when it comes down to how we conduct the investigations, who's the target, and who we prosecute, those decisions need to be made in a way that is completely independent of politics. And so I don't think it's going to be any different in Washington than it is here. As Deputy Attorney General, you're more involved in policy making. But in terms of the principles of the department and how we conduct our investigations and who we prosecute, those decisions are going to be made in the same way they've always been made.
As he has quite the track record as the U.S. attorney here in Maryland. Rosenstein says while it is hard to hang his hat on one or two cases over his 12 years, he points to the indictment of 25 people and BGF gang members inside the Baltimore City jail. There's also the most recent racketeering case against 7 Baltimore City police officers, as well as the 2010 prosecution of a singular criminal who terrorized parts of Prince George's County with home invasions, sexual assaults, and murder. A cadre of local and federal authorities helped piece together his crime spree.
Jason Scott was sentenced to 100 years in federal prison, which is effectively a life sentence. And he deserved it because he was one of the worst criminals that I've personally been involved in prosecuting.
But in all those cases, Rosenstein said it was only possible with the cooperation of local and federal law enforcement. It's a soundbite he would offer in almost every press conference he held. Cooperation is a tenet to Rosenstein's crime fight and says it's no coincidence his efforts to heal rifts and sink local and federal resources helped drive down violent crime over his tenure here. But as you can see, the last 2 years have nearly erased that progress. Rosenstein calls this recent violence an epidemic and begs the return of a cooperation between the state's attorney's office, police, and the feds to battle it back down.
I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it went down because of good law enforcement. I think it went up because of a series of traumatic events that occurred in Baltimore City in 2015. And I think it can come back down again if we all get together and we focus our resources and we use the tools available to us, but it's not going to be easy. And it's going to require cooperation and coordination among our law enforcement agencies, and it's going to require support from federal agencies as well. So it's going to be a big challenge, but I'm heartened by the fact that we have done it before. We know how to do it. We know it requires that coordination. It requires police officers to know exactly what we want them to do and to have the confidence that if they do it, they're going to have our support.
Again, that was Brian Kuebler reporting tonight. Now, Rosenstein also addressed the DOJ consent decree.
Yeah, echoing the views by his boss, Jeff Sessions, Rosenstein says while useful in gaining trust in the community, he warns that the consent decree cannot solve all the crime problems.
Well, that responsibility is still with local law enforcement agencies and their willingness to work together and then target the right individuals. Still no word yet on who's going to replace Rod Rosenstein here in Maryland.